money to put in it.
Yeah.
I didn't think about getting it from
Hey.
my niece, but if I get
How
it
you
from
doing
one,
tonight?
the other
Evening. I'm
one's
doing fabulous. How are
Good.
you?
The other
You're with
one's
bells
too
on.
little right now.
What's
This
that?
is,
You're
you
with
know,
bells on.
With bells on.
Cell phone.
she puts
Look,
everything in.
it's
She puts everything in her mouth
What
right now.
time
It looks
it
like
is?
Hungry
looks
Hippos.
like
It
it.
must be the same type of
6:30.
mechanism.
What have you got, Dave?
Notions of it.
I have, somebody needs to put a work order in to change that clock.
We didn't know who to call.
Are
Like,
we
we
an hour
didn't know.
late? Is that what the?
But I didn't
Somebody.
listen.
Sure.
I am trying to be nice to you
I still
today.
haven't hit him up for not cleaning the windows yet.
Oh yeah, you need to clean our window in her office.
There you go.
In my office, but
walk back
hers
there
is
and
going to be green forever.
Just while you're walking by. I was like, oh my gosh.
So I guess it's just the three of.
You're going to remove the windows at the same time that you're still in the building?
Oh. We were doing so well.
I know.
Look at from the other direction. Right?
Well, are we at 6:30?
I just thought hers were going to be the last one.
29. Almost there.
Almost seconds.
Change the schedule
seconds
so now
away.
we're the last on the other side?
Is Brian
Okay.
up there?
Yes, he is. We heard you.
You're going to go to the front? Oh, gotcha. I'm with you. I'm okay with that. That means you'll
I
be out
know.
faster.
Boy, when you're watching it, that minute
It's never going to
changes.
change, I know.
If you do it that way, that means we can move everything in the rooms faster. We can move the entire planning
6:30.
and zoning
Yep.
department when we're done.
We're going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Kolianis,
Here.
Mr. Bolton,
Here,
Mr. Tunstall, Ms. Protomitis, Ms. Page,
Here.
Ms. Johnson,
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments before we get started this evening? Okay. Can we have the quasi-judicial announcement and swearing in of speakers, and also perhaps mention there's only 3 of us present?
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Heritage Preservation Board acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by the law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board wishing to disclose any ex parte communications this evening?
None.
Seeing none. Anyone who is wishing to speak this evening, could you please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, as there are only 3 members of the board here tonight, a unanimous vote is required by all 3 board members in order for the application to pass and a certificate to be issued. So if you would like to postpone, if the applicant would like to postpone until the next meeting, they are more than welcome to do so. Or they can simply continue this evening and just be bound by the unanimous decision of the board.
Since it's a city-sponsored application, the city's going to move forward with the board and
Okay,
with that.
fine. We'll have the approval of minutes for the July 11th, 2016 meeting. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve as submitted.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Page, Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Ms. Kolianis.
Yes. we'll go ahead and proceed with the case before us. CA 16111, South Gross and South Ring Street Parking Lot City Project. Would the staff like to explain the project, please?
For the record, Lisa Wargo, Principal Planner. The City of Tarpon Springs is requesting a certificate of approval to construct a city public parking lot. The proposed parking lot is located south of the alley, which is located south of Tarpon Avenue and between South Ring and South Gross Avenues. And a portion of the proposed construction site lies within a parcel with a contributing structure, the City Waterworks building, located on the northeast corner of the project site. The Waterworks building is a structure built in 1916 and constructed of brick and concrete block that houses a well that still exists today. The large front entry door was later partially enclosed circa 1970. An accessory garage storage structure located to the south was added on the rear of the main structure at a later date, circa 1970, but the true date is unknown. The accessory garage carport portion of the structure consists of concrete cinder blocks and shingled roof. It's staff's opinion that the garage carport portion of the structure, due to the method of construction and the materials used, was erroneously included in the Florida Master Site file as part of the original Waterworks structure. It is this portion of the entire structure that is proposed for demolition to make room for parking spaces in the new lot. If it is determined by this board that the structure is part of the original Waterworks building, a request for a certificate of approval for demolition of the accessory portion of the structure will be presented at the next HPB meeting. The structure is located adjacent and to the west. The structure located adjacent and to the west of the historic Waterworks building will also be demolished. The structure is not designated as a historic or contributing structure and was not permitted. Parking lot will consist of approximately 36 parking spaces and can also be used for planned events. Entrances will be located off of South Ring Avenue and the alley to the north of the site. Only one exit will be planned for the lot located off South Gross Avenue. An 8-foot deep landscape buffer is planned for 3/4 of the site boundaries. For the review criteria and analysis. In reviewing an application for the certificate of approval, the board shall consider the following criteria. Numbers 1 and 2 we did not find applicable. Number 3, the relationship of a structure within a preservation district to the open space between it and other buildings or scenic views shall be protected through a site plan review process. Staff's findings are that the project has been reviewed and received approval through the staff technical review process. Staff emphasized and encouraged landscaping, a pedestrian entrance, and pedestrian safety features for the project. Under number 4, the shape and texture of the roof shall replicate the shape, texture, and type of roof on structures of similar style and age within the preservation district. Staff's findings. If during the demolition of the accessory structure there is an impact to the roof or siding of the existing Waterworks building, staff is recommending that it be a condition of approval that any demolition and or any reconstruction work performed around or on the Waterworks building is performed by contractors and workers having historical structure renovation and reconstruction experience. Number 5, the size and mass of the building after alteration shall be reflective of the building's original architecture. Staff's findings. Removal of all the construction material and outside storage items within the parcel and the addition of new landscaping and lighting should open up the area adjacent to the Waterworks historical structure and create a more aesthetic appearance for these parcels next to the Waterworks structure. Number 6, landscaping shall enhance the architectural character and appearance of the structure or traditional cultural property and protect open spaces and pedestrian ways. Staff's findings are that an 8-foot deep landscaping buffer will be surrounding the project. We did not find number 7 applicable. Number 8, all structures shall be recognized as products of their own time and shall not attempt to create an earlier appearance than the original date of construction. Staff's findings are, staff has considered that the removal of the accessory structure in bad physical shape and appearance and not truly part of the original waterworks structure, and the plan for opening the area and removing all the construction debris and outside storage items that currently exist, may offer an opportunity to provide more of an aesthetic focus on the waterworks building. Number 9, the renovation of contributing structures in an historic district shall meet the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic structures. Staff's findings. Staff has discussed the proposed demolition of the accessory parking structure with our engineering and utility staff members and emphasized that any actions directly affecting the waterworks structure must be in compliance with design guidelines. Since this is a city project, it must go through the bidding process in contracting out the work, and it is staff's opinion that a contractor chosen should have experience in working around and with historical structures. Number 10, the proposed project shall conform to the requirements of this code and be in compliance with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. Staff's findings. The request has been reviewed and approved through the city's technical review committee and will require permitting through the city's building development department. And number 11, the impact upon archaeological sites shall preserve the integrity of the site. Staff's findings, no archaeological sites will be impacted. Staff's recommendations is that staff recommends approval of the city's request to construct a public parking lot with the following recommended conditions. That number 1, approval of the parking lot project and start of the construction is contingent upon subsequent and separate review and approval by the Heritage Preservation Board for the demolition of the accessory garage portion of the contributing structure, if required. And number 2, that the bidding process by the city include a requirement or statement within the request for quotes and qualifications that the contractor has experience in restoration of historical structures to ensure that the demolition work and or any potential restoration work required on the side of the waterworks building or roof meets the Secretary of Interior standards and local design guidelines. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a couple. The structure is included on the Florida master site file. Is it in the purview of this board to not recognize that? I mean, do we have that authority?
So here's kind of where I struggle with this and why this is coming to this board. When the master site file was done, there was no differentiation between the actual original waterworks building that has since been restored since this was done and this additional area that, you know, is the 3 bays. It's kind of really deteriorated. As a result, really, there's nothing in the design guidelines or in your section of code that says that you can't interpret this and determine, you know, this is ideally what we believe to be the historic structure. I mean, we have to just assume that it was done on a survey. I know of at least one instance that we've identified that there was something that was erroneously included on one of these, and that was the one where the map was incorrect. So from time to time, things tend to get put on here. If in fact that addition was put on in the 70s, it didn't qualify under the criteria anyway that you use to assess your master site file. So really, it's one of those things that you have a right to interpret this material, all the material we give you, as to whether or not you want to require that certificate of approval for the demolition of this portion of the structure, recognizing that staff is telling you it appears to have been done later. It appears to have been erroneously included in the master site file, but because it's there, we needed basically an interpretation of this board that you agree with staff that you know, this building staying there and crumbling, if that's what eventually happens to it, could produce damage to another structure that we've put significant money into. Actually, the Public Works folks have put significantly money and time into renovating. So as a result, we'd rather not see that situation happen. I don't want to further have this building deteriorate to a point and we just save it just because we don't know what to do with it here. I would rather struggle with it here tonight and say, you know, this is a portion that we recognize that was included in the master site file, probably shouldn't have been included based on the fact that we weren't looking at things in the 70s. Because if we were looking at things in the 70s, then we should have done the same thing down with the Faith Chapel when we looked at their sanctuary and the addition that they're putting onto the sanctuary, because that building is circa 1972. And I would argue that, you know, it has its own value. However, in this particular case, because you're dealing with a portion of a structure that is structurally unsound, at least based on what the building development director has determined and provided in your packet, pictures and descriptions, I would say that you're on equal footing with this for you to make a determination that this portion of the building does not require a certificate of approval because it was erroneously included. And I'll let Erica
From a legal
argue with
perspective,
me if she wants.
I'm not going to argue, but just to kind of clarify, your powers and duties are specifically enumerated within the code. And as far as certificates of approval are concerned, it just says that in accordance with the terms of the article, you're thereby you have the ability to regulate alterations, new construction, relocation, and demolitions. And the criteria that you consider, nothing in the criteria specifically relates to the master site file. So it's a backup material, but nothing in your code says that you have to go by exactly what that says.
Thank you.
But just a caution with that, in the future, we don't want to be just randomly saying, "Oh, well, it's okay. We don't have this." I mean, there was a purpose to these master site files, and I know you guys tend to err on the side of caution anyway. But just this may be one of those cases that you find, you know, that it's an issue, but in the future, we're still going to be bringing demolitions and that type of thing before this board because that's what needs to happen. It's just this particular one is a special case.
Second question, do we know how long the applicant has owned the property?
The Public Works Director might be able to tell us.
Good evening, Tom Funch, Public Works Director. That I don't have the exact date. I know it dates back probably into the early 1900s. It was a well house, of course, for all these years. The structure itself, at one time, I believe, dating back to probably the early 70s, was once a public works yard, fleet maintenance. I believe, from look at the structure, that accessory garage was put on there to meet the needs in around 1970, 75, when the other work was done to that building, the front door. It almost matches the same exact type of construction.
Okay. The last question I have, and then I'll make a comment later, is I didn't see anything where we approve parking lots or use of land. Is that in our purview,
You do approve parking lots, and I'll
Okay.
give you the example of that. When we looked at St. Somewhere, we had many things. One of the things that you approved there was the handicap parking lot, the handicap parking space, the couple of spaces that he has there.
Okay.
You do look at those to make sure that the parking and or any vehicle access or that type of thing are consistent with your design guidelines.
Thank you. Some
Okay.
of this is just me learning.
Yeah, no,
and having
you don't
good
see many,
information,
we
so
don't do
thank
many
you.
parking lots in the downtown historic area, so this isn't something that you see on a regular basis.
I have a quick question. The city has set the Sanborn maps, correct? What is the
Correct.
latest year that you have of that? 1950?
I don't know if it even I don't think it comes in
I know.
that, I don't know
I've
that,
seen a 45, but I just
I don't think it
wondered-
comes I don't think of the 50s. I think maybe, yeah, I would say the 40s. When I did the research for the Jesse Burke house, we went back to 1910, and then we came forward from there. I don't think we have anything from 50.
And this structure or these structures were not there at that time.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Do
I have
we
a
have
comment.
any other questions for the applicant?
No.
No. Would there be someone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this application?
Mike Kaiser. We have the KCQ Barbecue, which is next to St. Somewhere on that. And I'm all for the parking lot because we need more parking downtown if we're wanting to proceed with this, trying to develop the restaurants and people walking the streets and having an area to park because we're running out of it. But I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to oppose this application? Okay, any other questions from the board?
Are we going to do discussion or?
Well, that's
Okay, sorry.
asking,
Okay.
You know, go ahead and
Go ahead.
discuss.
I don't have any concern that this section of the building is not historic and that the parking lot is needed. My only concern is that it's the second property that the city has brought before us, the Jesse Burke home, that when it was taken into ownership of the city actually did an assessment of the home and said it was in good condition, but then later presented an application stating that it was dilapidated, fallen apart, and needed to be, after we owned it for many years. And then the second structure that the city has owned for a long time, and part of the application is stating how dilapidated and falling apart it is. And so that concerns me that we have structures that are in our care that we actually built that is dilapidated and falling apart. Even if it was in great condition, we still may need to be removing it for the parking lot. But it is concerning that that's been in our care this long, and part of the application is that it's falling apart and in poor repair. That doesn't bode well that the city is taking care of our buildings very well.
So noted.
Thank you. And you hear a motion?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to approve the application as presented by the applicant.
Send it with the conditions.
With the
that-
conditions mentioned by the staff, yeah.
And just to clarify that before you vote, that would mean that the city is not going to come back for a CA for the demolition of that additional structure, just so everyone's clear on that.
The garage.
Yeah, not for the waterworks building,
Right.
just for the. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to confuse the situation. I clarified to confuse it.
So the recommendation is we are approving the city's recommendation,
Correct.
correct? Roll call, please.
Ms. Page?
Yes.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes,
Ms. Kolianis?
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
And now we go to staff comments.
Staff has one comment. What I'm going to pass out now is just the public hearing schedule for next year. Wanted to make sure that you guys got this. If there's anything that, any of the meeting dates that are a problem, if you could let me know, like in the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks, we can adjust those or talk about those. But this is just, we've taken into account any holidays and things that I've had to adjust up and down based on Monday holidays. Unfortunately, your schedule gets a little bit, you and Planning and Zoning Board have a little bit of trouble because of when Monday holidays fall. So as a result, we've had to adjust some of those dates. Specifically, the one for the 9th is adjusted as a result of Epiphany, and the other holidays that fall in that time frame. But other than that, I just wanted to present this, give it to you. If you see anything that's glaring, then we can address that. Obviously just pop me an email, let me know. If you know ahead of time that you're not going to be there for a meeting, if you want to let me know, we'll put it in the notebook and have it ahead for folks if you're that, when you're taking time for next year. And then the other thing that I have is your elections will be coming up in January. So we'll put that on the agenda for January. I'm trying to get all the boards to get back to a January schedule because we've had so much disruption on boards in the last 6 months to a year. I want to get you guys back on normal schedule so everybody is doing things at the same time. So we're going to try to do that for January, just so you'll be all set and we can continue on that way. I don't think there's anybody on this board that is actually rolling off. Because they're adjusting, they're getting into the point where they're adjusting how your appointments are done. That ordinance hasn't really been adopted at this point. But I don't think that we looked at that, and I don't think there's anybody on this board that's going to be rolling off. Most of the folks are either on for another whole year or on for like the middle of the year. So as a result, we should not have any disruption. Hopefully, knock on wood, everyone stays on the board. But other than that, that's all that I have for staff comments. And we'll let you know when the appointment schedule is adjusted and how that's going to work when we get there. It's just some time before the BOC is going to, address that. Okay.
Board comments? I have one.
Okay.
I would like to thank Commissioner Banther for his support of the Heritage Preservation Board at the October 18th commission meeting. And I certainly appreciate his support, and note that he used to be on the Heritage Preservation Board and understands those guidelines. Guess that's it. Meeting's adjourned.
Mine? Oh, I was holding my tongue.
no.
Things to say.
There's another demo.
Oh, I always have something to say, but I try to decide whether it's